Luo Feng had barely stepped out from his seclusion when the ice prison once again plunged into turbulence. His newly created ultimate technique had just shaken the entire region, his victory over Benlei King still echoing among the countless imprisoned experts. But before Luo Feng could even take a proper breath, an even more terrifying aura descended from the distant void. Cold, oppressive, ancient, and carrying the weight of absolute dominance. Silver Eyes, one of the 5 great giants of the ice prison, had arrived. For tens of thousands of years, Silver Eyes had been a nightmare in the ice prison. Apart from the other 4 giants, no one dared provoke this existence whose death god's palm had ended countless lives. And now that same terrifying figure appeared before Luo Feng, demanding he hand over his anonymous virtual universe account. A simple item in the outside world, yet in the eternal loneliness of the ice prison, it was the only thing capable of keeping Silver Eyes sane. But Luo Feng was no longer the Luo Feng of the past. After creating his new ultimate technique, the fighting spirit within him surged like wildfire. A being of Silver Eyes' level was exactly the type of opponent he wanted to test himself against. So instead of fear, excitement filled Luo Feng's eyes as he stepped forward, his aura erupting like a blazing sun. The clash between the two was instant. Silver Eyes raised a palm that seemed to blot out the heavens, forming the legendary death god's palm. The giant hand descended with overwhelming force, its pressure capable of suffocating any ordinary king-level expert. Yet Luo Feng stood firm, the power of his new technique surging through his body like a roaring river. With a single strike, he shattered the incoming palm force, causing the surrounding experts to tremble. No one had ever confronted the death god's palm head-on and walked away unscathed. But Luo Feng had done more than survive. He had overridden it. Silver Eyes' expression finally changed. For an existence who had dominated the ice prison for eras, this was unacceptable. The cold gleam in her eyes sharpened, and slowly, all of the eyes covering her body opened. A shiver ran through the space itself as spiritual pressure surged like an unstoppable tide. What came next was the move that even top invincible kings feared: Infinite Illusion Reincarnation. The moment Silver Eyes activated it, Luo Feng's surroundings dissolved. Reality twisted, shattered, and transformed into an endless cycle of nightmarish illusions. This wasn't mere trickery. Countless experts had died within these illusions, unable to distinguish reality from the phantoms conjured by Silver Eyes' terrifying mental power. Anyone caught inside would repeatedly suffer death, despair, and rebirth until their mind broke entirely. But Luo Feng's will had long surpassed the limits of ordinary warriors. He had passed the trial of the Star Tower, a test that crushed even the strongest determiners. Compared to that experience, Silver Eyes' illusions felt like mere waves lapping against an unshakable mountain. No matter how the illusions twisted, no matter how many times they tried to consume him, Luo Feng's consciousness held firm, like an eternal flame that refused to be extinguished. A moment later, the illusions collapsed. Luo Feng stepped out, his gaze clear, his expression unshaken. Silver Eyes' pupils contracted in disbelief. The technique she prided herself on, the trump card that guaranteed death for anyone who encountered it, Luo Feng had broken through it effortlessly. It was the first crack in her pride in more than 10,000 years. But Luo Feng also understood something from this clash. Although he could break Silver Eyes' techniques, he had not inflicted meaningful damage. Even incorporating the subtle power of the extreme Rainbow King only shaved off a small fraction of her divine body. To truly defeat Silver Eyes, his current strength was still insufficient. Yet while he couldn't overpower her, one thing he could do better than her was flee. Speed. This was Luo Feng's greatest advantage. With this realization, Luo Feng's strategy shifted. Instead of forcing a prolonged battle, he began maneuvering with extreme precision, zigzagging across the broken terrain, creating distance whenever Silver Eyes drew near. As they engaged in this strange dance of pursuit and evasion, a bold idea suddenly formed in Luo Feng's mind. Why not negotiate? While darting away from another strike, Luo Feng launched a telepathic message, telling Silver Eyes that if she wanted the anonymous account so desperately, she could exchange a valuable treasure for it. In the outside world, such an exchange would be absurd. A single treasure could buy thousands of accounts. But this was the ice prison, a place where countless treasures had long lost their meaning. replaced instead by crushing boredom and isolation? At first, Luo Feng himself thought the idea was unrealistic, but to his surprise, Silver Eyes hesitated. For someone who had been trapped for eras, entertainment was more precious than divine treasures. The tiny virtual universe sensor Luo Feng held represented a lifeline to sanity, a way to escape the suffocating solitude. And so the unthinkable happened. Silver Eyes agreed. What she offered as payment made even Luo Feng momentarily freeze. It was a giant axe treasure, a weapon containing unimaginable power. For any expert, such a treasure was priceless. For Luo Feng, who constantly sought to improve his strength, it was akin to a heavenly fortune descending into his hands. This exchange was beyond anything he had expected. He had turned danger into opportunity, turning an enemy into a negotiator, and receiving a treasure that could amplify his future battles. Meanwhile, Silver Eyes, despite her reluctance, willingly parted with a treasure she had guarded for countless ages, all in exchange for a small device that allowed her a moment of entertainment. It was a trade that no one else in the ice prison could have dreamed of making. As Silver Eyes held the sensor, anticipation flickered in her eyes while Luo Feng quietly withdrew with the giant axe treasure glowing in his grasp. The outcome was unbelievable, almost humorous, yet undeniably impressive. From being hunted to becoming the beneficiary of a priceless trade, Luo Feng's encounter with Silver Eyes became another legendary moment in his journey. And as he walked deeper into the ice prison, treasure in hand and will stronger than ever, it became clear once again. Wherever Luo Feng went, impossible miracles followed. And that brings us to the end of this chapter in Luo Feng's ice prison journey. From clashing head-on with Silver Eyes, to breaking through endless cycles of illusion, to turning a life-and-death confrontation into an unbelievable trade, Luo Feng once again proved why his rise is unstoppable. Every trial only sharpens him further, every enemy becomes a stepping stone, and every encounter pushes him one step closer to greatness. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to follow more of Luo Feng's incredible path, don't forget to stay tuned for the next update. Thank you for watching, and we'll meet again in the next story.